The ruins of Velthara stood like broken teeth against the amber sky, ancient stones weathered by centuries of wind and rain. Khan's boots crunched over scattered debris as he followed his mentor through the crumbling archway, hand resting instinctively on the pommel of his blade. "Master, are you certain this is the safest route?" Khan asked, his dark eyes scanning the shadows between collapsed pillars. At 28, he'd survived enough ambushes to trust his instincts, and right now every nerve in his body screamed danger. Oren turned, his weathered face creasing into a reassuring smile. The old swordmaster's gray beard couldn't hide the jagged scar running from ear to jaw, a souvenir from the border wars. "Safe? Boy, I've been traveling these roads since before you could hold a wooden sword. We're just passing through. By nightfall, we'll be in Korstal, drinking warm ale and—" The crossbow bolt punched through Oren's chest with a wet thunk. Time seemed to fracture. Khan watched his mentor's eyes widen in shock, blood bubbling from his lips as he stumbled backward. The sword, or rather the teaching blade Oren had carried for 30 years, clattered against stone. "Oren!" Before we continue, please like this video and subscribe for more support and drop a comment about your favorite character. Khan's blade sang free of its sheath as figures emerged from the ruins. 5 of them. No, 7. Mercenaries by the look of their mismatched armor, but they moved with coordinated precision. Professional killers. The leader stepped forward, a tall man with a bald head marked by ritual scars. He wore black leather studded with silver, and his smile was the smile of a man who enjoyed his work. "Nothing personal, swordsman. Just business. Lord Malthor sends his regards." "Malthor?" Oren gasped, collapsing to his knees. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across ancient stones like a crimson offering. "Khan, run! I'm not leaving you!" "You stupid boy!" Oren's hand shot out with surprising strength, grabbing Khan's wrist. His grip was iron, desperate. "Listen to me. Malthor is just a puppet. Someone bigger is pulling strings. You need to—" He coughed, blood spattering his beard. "Run, live and make them pay." The mercenaries were closing in, weapons drawn. Khan counted the angles, calculated his odds. 7 against 1. His master dying. No escape route except— Oren's other hand moved in a gesture Khan had never seen before. The air itself seemed to ripple, and suddenly the ground beneath the mercenaries erupted in a wall of flame. They screamed, stumbling backward, and in that moment of chaos, Oren shoved Khan with supernatural force. "Go!" Khan flew backward through a gap in the ruins, crashing through rotted wooden doors into darkness. He heard Oren's final scream, heard the wet sounds of blades finding flesh again and again and again. Then he was running, tears streaming down his face, running into the labyrinth of ancient corridors as his mentor's death rattle echoed behind him. Behind him, the bald mercenary wiped blood from his blade and spat on Oren's corpse. "Old fool. You should have stayed retired." Khan's knuckles split against the training post for the 3rd time that morning, blood mixed with sweat dripping onto the packed earth of the courtyard. He didn't stop, or rather couldn't stop. Thrust, pivot, slash, again. "You're going to break your hands before you break that post," a feminine voice observed. Khan ignored her, continuing his forms. The morning sun cast long shadows across the small compound he'd rented on the outskirts of Harrowfen, a no-name town filled with no-name people asking no questions, perfect for a man with murder in his heart. "Khan, you haven't eaten in 2 days." "Not hungry." Celine stepped into his line of sight, forcing him to stop or cut her down. She was infuriating like that. The herbalist had patched him up when he'd stumbled into town 4 months ago, half dead from exposure and grief. She'd asked for nothing in return, which made her either stupid or dangerous. Khan hadn't decided which. She was beautiful in an unconventional way. Sharp features, copper skin, and amber eyes that seemed to see too much. Her dark hair was bound in practical braids, and she wore the simple green robes of a healer, though Khan had noticed the knife she kept hidden in her boot. "You need to eat," she said firmly. "You need to sleep. You need to stop trying to kill yourself in training. I need to find Malthor." "The crime lord? The one who supposedly ordered your master's death?" Celine crossed her arms. "You've told me the name 100 times. What you haven't told me is how you plan to reach him. He's in Blackspire, surrounded by an army of hired killers in a fortress that hasn't fallen in 300 years. Khan finally met her eyes. "I'll find a way. You'll find a grave." Her voice softened. Khan, I understand wanting revenge, but no, you don't. He sheathed his sword with more force than necessary. You didn't watch the only person who ever gave a damn about you die while you ran away like a coward. Celine flinched, but her expression hardened. Oren told you to run. You honored his final wish. That's not cowardice. That's survival. It feels like cowardice. She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. There are rumors. Travelers coming through town talking about Malthor expanding his operations, pushing into the southern territories. He's hired mercenaries, including a group with a bald leader covered in ritual scars. Khan's head snapped up. Where? That's what I thought. Celine pulled a folded map from her robes. They were spotted near the Thornwood, about 3 days' ride east. There's an old fortress there, mostly abandoned. If I were a crime lord setting up a new base of operations. She let the implication hang. Khan took the map, studying it with hungry eyes. The Thornwood. He knew it. Dangerous territory filled, with ruins even older than Velthara. Why are you helping me? He asked quietly. Celine's smile was sad. Because I've seen that look in the mirror. My brother was killed by bandits 5 years ago. I spent 2 years hunting them, and you know what I found? Corpses and emptiness. She touched his arm gently. But I also learned that sometimes the only way to move forward is through the blood. So if you're determined to walk this path, at least let someone watch your back. I work alone. No, she corrected. You die alone. There's a difference. Despite himself, Khan felt the corner of his mouth twitch. It wasn't quite a smile. He'd forgotten how those worked. But it was something. 3 days to the Thornwood, he said. 2.5 if we push hard. We? Celine was already walking toward the stable. I'm not letting you stumble into an ambush without supplies. Besides, someone needs to keep you from bleeding to death from training injuries. Khan looked down at his split knuckles, then back at the woman who'd decided to tie her fate to his suicide mission. Against every instinct telling him to refuse, he found himself nodding. 2.5 days, he agreed. But when we get there, you stay back. This is my fight. We'll see, Celine called over her shoulder, disappearing into the stable. Khan returned his attention to the training post, but this time his strikes were measured, controlled. He would need his strength for what was coming, and he would make them pay. Every single one. The Thornwood earned its name honestly. Massive trees choked with thorny undergrowth created a natural maze, and the paths twisted like snake guts through shadows that never quite lifted, even at noon. Khan and Celine had been riding for exactly 2.5 days, and now they crouched in the underbrush, watching the fortress. It squatted against the hillside like a wounded beast. Ancient stone walls patched with newer wood. Watchtowers that had seen better centuries. But the guards were alert, and Khan counted at least a dozen mercenaries visible from their position. That's a lot of steel, Celine whispered, passing him a water skin. Khan drank, never taking his eyes off the fortress. Malthor's being cautious. Probably has enemies. Probably about to have one more. She adjusted her pack. So what's the plan? Storm the front gate? Sneak in through the sewers? Wait for them all to leave? I was thinking more along the lines of walking up and knocking. Celine stared at him. That's possibly the worst plan I've ever heard. They're mercenaries. Mercenaries like gold. Khan pulled out a small pouch, the last of his savings from years of work. I'll tell them I'm looking for employment. Once I'm inside, I find the bald one. Corvin. I heard someone call him in town, and I get information. And if they recognize you, they won't. They saw me for maybe 10 seconds in failing light while I was running for my life. Khan's jaw tightened. Besides, I've changed. Added weight, let my hair grow, grew out the beard. I look like half the sellswords in the territory. It was true. The grief-lean swordsman who'd fled Velthara had become something harder, more dangerous, prison yard muscle layered over his frame from endless training. His face was hidden behind weeks of beard growth. Only his eyes remained the same, dark and burning with purpose. I don't like this, Celine said. You don't have to. Stay here. If I'm not back by nightfall, I'm going with you. Celine. As your healer. She cut him off, meeting his glare with surprising steel. Mercenary groups always need someone to patch up the wounded. I'll offer my services. They'll jump at the chance. Healers are worth their weight in gold out here. Khan wanted to argue. The smart play was to leave her behind, keep her safe. But he also recognized that stubborn set to her jaw. He'd seen it in the mirror often enough. Stay close. Stay alert. If things go bad, I run. Yes, you've told me 100 times. She stood, brushing dirt from her robes. Come on, let's go sell ourselves. They emerged from the tree line, hands visible and empty of weapons, though Khan's sword remained on his hip. The guards spotted them immediately, crossbows raising. State your business, one shouted, a grizzled dwarf with a magnificent beard braided with copper wire. Looking for work, Khan called back, keeping his voice level and bored. Heard Malthor's hiring. I'm a blade. She's a healer. We both need coin. The dwarf exchanged glances with his partner, a lanky elf with the filed teeth of a Bloodwood clan member. After a moment, the elf nodded. Weapons stay at the gate. You get them back when you leave. If you leave, follow me. The interior of the fortress was a mixture of decay and desperate repair. Mercenaries lounged in the courtyard, sharpening weapons or gambling with bone dice. Khan counted 20, maybe 25, more than expected. His odds of survival had just dropped considerably. They were led through a heavy door into what must have once been a great hall. Now it served as a command center. Maps covered the walls marked with territories and routes. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by hard-looking men and women. And there, at the head of the table, sat a man who could only be Lord Malthor. He was younger than Khan expected, maybe 40, with the lean build of a former soldier. His clothes were fine but practical, and his face bore the calculating expression of someone who'd killed his way to power and intended to stay there. Beside him stood the bald mercenary, Corvan, the ritual scars on his scalp seeming to writhe in the torchlight. More cell swords, Malthor said, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. What makes you think I need more blades? Because you're expanding, Khan replied, keeping his tone neutral. And expansion means conflict. Conflict means casualties. You'll need replacements. Malthor's eyes narrowed, reassessing. Smart. I like smart, he gestured to Corvan. Test him. Khan had expected this. Corvan smiled his predator's smile and drew his sword, a brutal-looking cleaver designed to hack through armor and bone. Nothing personal, boy. Just need to see if you're worth the gold. They circled each other in the cleared space. Khan studied his opponent's stance, the way he held his weight, the micro-expressions that telegraphed intent. This was the man who'd helped kill Orin. The man whose blade had tasted his master's blood. Khan forced the rage down. Cold. He needed to be cold. Corvan struck first, a overhead chop designed to test reflexes. Khan parried, redirecting the force rather than meeting it head-on. The mercenary grunted approval and pressed the attack. Heavy strikes, brutal and efficient. Khan gave ground, deflecting, always deflecting. You're defensive, Corvan observed, breathing harder. That'll get you killed in a real fight. Maybe, Khan agreed. Then he moved. His counter was a thing of beauty, a feint toward the legs that became a thrust toward the throat, pulled at the last instant to stop a hair's breadth from Corvan's windpipe. The mercenary froze, feeling the kiss of steel against his skin. Or maybe, Khan said quietly, I just like to be sure. Silence. Then Malthor began to laugh, a genuine sound of delight. Oh, I like him. I like him very much. He waved a hand. You're hired. Both of you. The healer can set up in the East Tower. We've got wounded from last week's raid. You, swordsman, what's your name? Khan met Malthor's eyes and lied without hesitation. Dane. Well, Dane, welcome to my service. You'll bunk with the others, take orders from Corvan here, and if you prove yourself... Malthor's smile was a shark smile. Well, loyal men go far in my organization. Disloyal ones go in the ground. We clear? Crystal. Good. Corvan, show him around. I have business to attend to. As they were led away, Khan caught Seleni's eye. She gave him the tiniest nod. They were in. Now came the hard part. 3 days in the fortress felt like 3 years. Khan bunked with the other mercenaries, shared their meals, laughed at their jokes, and all the while he gathered information. Who reported to whom? Which guards were alert? Where Malthor spent his time? How many escape routes existed? And most importantly, he waited for his chance to get Corvan alone. It came on the fourth night. Khan found the bald mercenary on the eastern wall, staring out at the thornwood. The man was alone, which was either careless or confident. Khan was betting on the latter. "Can't sleep?" Khan asked, approaching casually. Corvin glanced at him, then back at the forest. "Never can. First week in a new place. Old habit from the war. You serve?" "Border skirmishes, mostly. Nothing glorious. No such thing as glorious war. Just blood and screaming and trying not to shit yourself." Corvin pulled out a flask, took a drink, offered it to Khan. "You're good with a blade. Real good. Where'd you train?" Khan accepted the flask, buying himself a moment. "Here and there. Had a teacher once, but he's dead." "They usually are." Corvin's tone was matter-of-fact. "This life doesn't offer retirement plans." "You've been with Malthor long?" "Couple years. Good pay, regular work, and he doesn't ask stupid questions." The mercenary studied Khan with suddenly sharp eyes. "Why? You thinking of leaving already?" "Just making conversation." "Right." Corvin's hand drifted toward his blade. "You know what's funny? You remind me of someone. Kid I saw months back up at some ruins. He ran when things got bloody. You got the same eyes." Khan's heart hammered, but his voice remained steady. "Lots of people have dark eyes." "True." Corvin's smile was dangerous. "But not many move like you do. That little trick you pulled during the test. I've only seen one other person use that exact technique." His blade cleared its sheath. "An old swordmaster named Orin. Right before I killed him." Khan's sword met Corvin's in a screech of steel. No more pretense. No more lies. "I was hoping you'd remember," Khan growled, pouring 4 months of rage into his strikes. They fought along the wall, blades flashing in the moonlight. Corvin was good. Better than good. His technique was brutal efficiency honed by years of killing. But Khan had something else. He had purpose. He had grief transformed into razor focus. And he had questions that needed answers. He drove Corvin back, their blades locked, bringing them face to face. "Why? Why did Malthor want Orin dead?" "Because..." Corvin grunted, breaking the lock. "He was told to." "By who?" "Does it matter? You'll be dead in a..." Alarm bells shattered the night. Other guards had spotted them. Khan heard boots on stone, shouts of alarm. He had seconds, maybe less. He channeled every lesson Orin had ever taught him into a single combination. Feint, parry, riposte. His blade found the gap in Corvin's guard, punching through leather and ribs. The mercenary's eyes went wide with shock. "Who gave the order?" Khan demanded, twisting the blade. Corvin coughed blood, his laugh wet and painful. "The architect. Rules from Blackspire. But not who. You think..." His eyes glazed. "We're all... puppets." Then he was gone. Khan ripped his blade free as mercenaries flooded onto the wall. Too many. Way too many. He saw Malthor emerge from the great hall, face twisted in rage. "Kill him!" Khan ran, not in cowardice, but in cold calculation. He'd gotten what he came for, a name, a direction, and proof that something bigger was at play. He sprinted along the wall, cut down a guard who moved too slow, and leaped. The drop was 20 feet onto the sloped roof of the stable. Khan hit hard, rolled, and kept moving. Arrows hissed through the air, one catching his shoulder with white-hot pain. He ignored it, sliding down the roof and dropping into the courtyard, where Selene waited with their horses. "Took you long enough," she shouted, throwing him his reins. "Had to have a conversation." They burst through the gate, arrows whistling past them. Khan heard Malthor screaming orders, heard the fortress coming alive with pursuit. They crashed into the thornwood, branches tearing at clothes and skin. "The ruins," Selene called. "Velthara. We can lose them there." It was insane. It was perfect. They rode like demons were chasing them, which Khan reflected wasn't far from the truth. Behind them, torches bobbed through the forest. Ahead, the broken stones of Velthara rose against the stars. The place where this had all begun. They abandoned the horses at the edge of the ruins. The animals couldn't navigate the broken stone. Khan and Selene plunged into the maze of collapsed temples and shattered walls, using every twist and turn to break line of sight with their pursuers. "They're spreading out," Selene panted, pressing against a pillar covered in ancient script. "Trying to surround us." Khan's shoulder burned where the arrow had grazed him. Blood seeped through his tunic, but he'd had worse. He peered around the corner, counting torches. At least 15 mercenaries, with Malthor himself leading the hunt. The crime lord wanted Khan's head personally. "This way," Khan whispered, pulling Selene deeper into the ruins. He knew where he was going. Even in the dark, even in his grief-blinded flight 4 months ago, part of him had mapped the route. They were moving toward the center of Velthara, toward the place where Orin had died. "Khan, wait!" Selene grabbed his arm. "There's something wrong here. Can you feel it?" He could. The air itself felt thick, charged with something ancient and aware. The stone seemed to hum with suppressed energy. Magic. Old magic. The kind that had slept for centuries. They rounded a corner and Khan froze. There, in the center of a circular chamber open to the stars, was Orin's skeleton. 4 months of weather and scavengers had stripped most of the flesh, but the teaching robes were still recognizable, still stained with old blood. Khan's vision blurred, his knees weakened. He'd known, intellectually, that his master was dead, but seeing the bones, seeing the final resting place. "I'm sorry," he whispered to the bones. "I'm so sorry I ran." "You should be." Malthor stepped into the chamber, flanked by 6 of his best killers. The crime lord's sword was drawn and his expression promised pain. "You cost me one of my best men. Corvin was worth 10 of you." Khan rose slowly, hand on his sword. "He told me about the architect, about someone in Blackspire pulling your strings." "Did he now?" Malthor's smile was thin. "And you think that matters? You think knowing there's someone above me will save you?" "No, but I thought you should know that you're just as much a puppet as the rest of us." Malthor's face darkened. "Kill them. Both of them. Make it slow." The mercenaries advanced. Khan drew, his blade positioning himself between them and Selene, 6 against 1, his shoulder bleeding, his body exhausted. This was it. This was where he'd join Orin. At least he'd die fighting. He took down the first mercenary with a thrust to the throat. The second lost a hand. But then they were on him, blades from every angle. Khan parried desperately, but a sword slipped past his guard, opening his ribs. Another cut his leg. He stumbled, going down to one knee. "Khan!" Selene's voice seemed distant. He saw her run forward, saw a mercenary backhand her across the face. She fell hard, blood streaming from her lip. The rage came then, not cold calculation, not measured revenge, pure incandescent fury. Khan's hand slammed against the ground, against the stones where Orin's blood had soaked into ancient rock, and something answered. The chamber exploded with light. Every rune carved into the walls blazed to life, casting the room in harsh crimson brilliance. The ground beneath Khan's hand cracked, and from the fissure rose something that should have remained buried. A sword. It was beautiful and terrible, blade the color of fresh blood, crossguard worked in the shape of dragon wings, pommel set with a gem that pulsed like a beating heart. Power radiated from it in waves that made Khan's teeth ache. He grabbed the hilt and the world went white. Power flooded through him. Knowledge. Techniques centuries old. The sword had been waiting for blood to wake it, waiting for rage to give it purpose. It was a weapon forged by the Crimson Court, the ancient mage warriors who'd ruled before the kingdoms fell. It had no cost save one. The more he used it, the more it would hunger. Khan surged to his feet, the sword alive in his hands. The mercenaries backed away, their confidence evaporating. "What in the hells?" Malthor began. Khan moved. The blade sang through the air, and where it cut, fire followed. The first mercenary's head left his shoulders in a gout of flame. The second was bisected at the waist. His scream cut short as his torso cauterized instantly. The third, fourth, and fifth died before they could raise their weapons, their bodies burning from the inside out. The sixth ran. Khan let him go. Malthor stood alone, his face pale, his sword trembling in his grip. You're a mage." "I'm a swordsman," Khan corrected, advancing slowly. The blade pulsed in his hand, eager for more blood. "But this sword, it likes me. Please." Malthor dropped his weapon. "Please, I was just following orders. The architect, he's the one who wanted your master dead. He's the one you should—" "Why?" "I don't know. I swear, I don't know. He sends messages through intermediaries, pays in gold, and we do the work. That's all I know. Khan studied the crime lord, reading truth in his terror. Malthor was nothing. A middle manager in a hierarchy of death. Killing him would be satisfying, but ultimately meaningless. But the sword disagreed. It whispered in Khan's mind, promising power, promising satisfaction, promising that the blood would taste so sweet. Khan. Celine's voice cut through the haze. She stood behind him, her face bruised but her eyes clear. Don't. He's not worth it. He ordered the hit. He's a coward following orders. The real enemy is in Blackspire. She touched his arm gently. Don't become what you're hunting. Khan looked at the sword, at the crimson blade still smoking with power. Then he looked at Malthor, pathetic and broken. Run, Khan said quietly. Tell your architect that I'm coming. Tell him that Khan, student of Orin Blackblade, is coming for his head. And tell him... Khan's smile was a predator's smile. Tell him to prepare. Malthor ran, crashing through the ruins like a panicked animal. Khan let the sword's point drop and the flames guttered out. The weapon seemed to sigh, disappointed but patient. It could wait. Celine helped him sit, examining his wounds. You're cut up pretty badly, and that thing... She gestured at the sword. What is it? Trouble, Khan admitted. Old trouble. Powerful trouble. Can you control it? He looked at the blade, feeling its hunger, its eagerness. For now. But it's going to want to be fed. Then we'll figure it out. She began binding his wounds with strips torn from her robe. Together. Khan looked at her. This woman who'd tied her fate to his. Who'd followed him into hell and hadn't flinched. Why are you doing this? Really? Celine met his eyes. Because when I look at you, I see someone who hasn't given up. Someone who still believes in something, even if it's revenge. That's rare out here, Khan. That's worth saving. He wanted to tell her to leave. To run before the sword's hunger consumed them both. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, he just nodded. Blackspire, he said. We head for Blackspire. Together, she confirmed. As they gathered themselves to leave, Khan took one last look at Orin's bones. I won't fail you again, Master. I promise. The sword pulsed in agreement, eager for the blood to come. The journey to Blackspire took 2 weeks of hard travel through increasingly dangerous territory. Khan and Selene kept to the wilderness, avoiding towns where Malthor's story might have spread. The crime lord would have reported what happened, a swordsman with a flaming blade hunting the architect. That kind of news traveled fast. The sword hung at Khan's hip, its hunger a constant whisper in the back of his mind. He'd learned to use it carefully, small applications of power, just enough to test its limits. The blade could channel elemental fury through his strikes, could make his movements faster, his reflexes sharper. But each use left him slightly more aware of the weapon's desire. It wanted to be used, wanted to burn. You're doing it again, Celine observed one evening as they made camp in a cave overlooking the Black River. Doing what? Staring at the sword like it's going to bite you. Khan shook, his head. It won't bite. It'll just... consume. She sat beside him close enough that their shoulders touched. Over the past 2 weeks, they'd fallen into an easy partnership. She watched his back, tended his wounds, and occasionally talked him out of stupid decisions. He kept her safe, taught her basic defensive techniques, and occasionally made her laugh despite the darkness of their mission. Tell me about Orin, she said quietly. Not how he died, how he lived. Khan was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to speak. I was 12 when I met him. Street rat in a border town, trying to steal from the wrong merchant. Orin caught me, and instead of turning me over to the guards, he offered to teach me, said I had good hands and terrible judgment, a perfect combination for a swordsman. Celine smiled. Sounds like he was right. He took me in, trained me, gave me purpose. Everything I know about fighting, about honor, about not being the piece of shit the world expected me to be. That came from him. Khan's jaw tightened, and I let him die. He chose to save you. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, Celine agreed. But it means something. He saw something in you worth saving. Don't waste that. Before Khan could respond, she leaned in and kissed him. It was gentle, questioning, and over far too quickly. What was that for? Khan asked, stunned. Because life is short and getting shorter. Her amber eyes held his. Because I've been wanting to do that for a week. And because tomorrow we reach Blackspire, and there's a good chance neither of us will leave alive. Khan touched her face, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her eyes reflected firelight. If I survive this... When? She interrupted. When you survive this. When I survive this, he amended. Come with me. Away from all this. Find somewhere quiet where the past doesn't matter. Celine's smile was sad. You know it doesn't work like that. You're going to walk into that city looking for the architect. You're going to find him, and then... She touched the sword at his hip. Then this thing is going to want its payment. I can control it. Can you? Or is it controlling you? Khan didn't have an answer for that. They spent the night wrapped in each other's arms, finding comfort and shared warmth against the cold certainty of what was coming. When morning came, they broke camp in silence and continued toward Blackspire. The city appeared at sunset, a massive sprawl of stone and steel built against a mountain of black volcanic rock. It was called the Merchant's Crown, the heart of trade, the city of opportunity. But Khan knew its other name, the City of Knives. This was where fortunes were made and lost, where power was currency and life was cheap. Somewhere in that labyrinth, the architect waited. Any idea where to start? Celine asked as they joined the flow of travelers entering the main gate. Malthor would have sent word. The architect knows I'm Yushisao, coming. Khan's hand rested on the sword's pommel. So, we don't look for him. We make him come to us. And how do we do that? Khan's smile was cold. We make noise. Blackspire's criminal underworld operated in layers. The street gangs controlled the slums. The merchant guilds controlled legitimate trade. And above them all, in the shadows, the true powers moved pieces on a board only they could see. Khan started at the bottom and worked his way up. The first gang was the Copper Fangs, smugglers who controlled the eastern docks. Khan walked into their main warehouse alone, the sword at his hip, and made his demands simple. Information about the architect, or blood. They chose blood. 10 minutes later, Khan walked out, his blade still sheathed but his knuckles split and bloody. Behind him, the warehouse burned with crimson fire that wouldn't spread, the sword's gift allowing him to destroy without causing collateral damage. The surviving gang members would spread the word. A swordsman with a burning blade was asking questions. The second gang was smarter. The Silver Chains controlled the fighting pits, and their leader, a scarred orc named Grask, met Khan in neutral territory. I hear you're looking for ghosts, Grask rumbled, his tusks filed to points. The architect doesn't exist. He's a story we tell to scare new recruits. And yet you know the name. Everyone knows the name. Doesn't make it real. Khan leaned forward. Malthor knew the name. Corvin knew the name. They took orders from someone. I want to know who. Grask studied him with surprisingly intelligent eyes. You're going to get yourself killed, swordsman, but I respect the dedication. He pulled out a scrap of paper, scribbled something. There's a man, calls himself the Broker, works out of the glass garden in the merchant quarter. He arranges meetings between people who shouldn't meet. If anyone can point you toward your ghost, it's him. The orc's expression hardened. But word of advice? The deeper you dig, the more things you'll find that want you buried. Be sure this is worth dying for. It is, Khan said without hesitation. 3 days later, Khan sat in the glass garden's private room, surrounded by walls of crystalline panels that reflected candlelight and dancing patterns. The Broker was a thin human with forgettable features and eyes that missed nothing. He'd agreed to the meeting immediately, which told Khan that someone had been expecting him. You've been making quite the stir, the Broker said, sipping wine from a crystal glass. 3 gang territories disrupted, 2 warehouses burned, and the city guard asking uncomfortable questions. Sloppy work. It got your attention. It got everyone's attention, including people you really don't want noticing you. The Broker set down his glass. But you already knew that. You wanted to be noticed. So here we are. The architect. Where is he? Direct. I like that. The Broker steepled his fingers. The entity you call the architect operates from the obsidian tower in the noble quarter. He never leaves. Never shows his face. Some say he's disfigured. Others say he's not even human. Maybe a lich or demon wearing human skin. All I know for certain is that he's been running intelligence networks and assassination rings for at least 20 years, maybe longer. And Oren, why did he want my master dead? The broker's expression flickered, surprise quickly masked. Ah, that's the question, isn't it? He leaned back, considering. What if I told you that Oren Blackblade was more than just a retired swordmaster? What if he was at once part of something bigger? Khan's blood went cold. Explain. 30 years ago, there was an organization called the Crimson Court, warrior mages who served as peacekeepers, assassins, and enforcers for the High Council. They were powerful, feared, and ultimately, too dangerous to be allowed to exist. The Council had them purged, every last one hunted down and killed. Oren never mentioned, because he survived by hiding, by becoming nobody. Just another retired soldier teaching sword forms to orphans. The broker's smile was knife-thin. But someone found out. Someone learned that Oren Blackblade was actually Oren Crimsonblade, one of the court's legendary warriors, and that someone wanted him dead before he could reveal certain uncomfortable truths. Khan felt the world tilt. Everything he thought he knew about his master, about his life, was built on a foundation of lies. The sword, he said slowly. The one I found in Velthara. It responded to Oren's blood. It was his, wasn't it? Among others. The court had several such weapons. Most were destroyed. That one was hidden, waiting for someone worthy, or desperate, to claim it. The broker stood. The architect killed your master to keep the past buried, but by finding that sword, by making all this noise, you've proven that the past refuses to stay dead. Where in the Obsidian Tower? Top floor, but you'll never reach it. The tower is a fortress, guarded by the best killers money can buy, and even if you somehow fight your way through, the architect himself is no ordinary opponent. The broker walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. The woman you travel with, the healer. She's being watched. The architect's people know about her. If you care about her survival, end this quickly, or send her away. Then he was gone, leaving Khan alone with the weight of new revelations. Khan found Celine in their rented room at the Rusty Nail Inn, organizing her medical supplies. She looked up as he entered, and her smile faded when she saw his expression. What happened? He told her everything. About the Crimson Court, about Oren's true identity, about the broker's warning. When he finished, Celine sat in silence for a long moment. Then she said, So your master wasn't just a swordsman. He was one of the most dangerous people in the kingdom, hiding in plain sight. And I never knew, never suspected. He kept it hidden to protect you. She touched his hand. And now you're following his path, becoming exactly what he tried to leave behind. Khan looked at the sword leaning against the wall, its blade seeming to pulse with inner light. The broker said you're being watched, that you're in danger because of me. I know. You know? Celine's smile was sad. I've noticed the tales, the eyes in the crowd. I'm not stupid, Khan. I knew the risks when I chose to follow you. She moved closer. But I also knew something else. I knew that if I left, you'd walk into that tower alone and die alone. And I won't let that happen. You should run, tonight. I can give you money, help you get out of the city. No. Celine, no. Her voice was steel. I've watched you become something more these past weeks. Something dangerous and powerful and barely human. That sword is changing you, Khan. You need someone to remind you what you're fighting for. You need... She touched his face gently. You need someone to come back to. Khan pulled her close, breathing in her scent, herbs and smoke and something uniquely her. When this is over, we'll figure it out, she interrupted. Together. But first you have to survive. They spent that night tangled in each other, desperate and tender, knowing it might be their last. When morning came, Khan was surprised to find tears on his face. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. Good, Selena replied. Means you're still human. The Obsidian Tower earned its name from the black volcanic stone that formed its walls, stone that drank in light and reflected nothing back. It rose 12 stories above the noble quarter, a monument to wealth and power that common folk avoided by instinct. Khan stood in the shadow of a merchant building across the street, studying the tower's defenses, guards at every entrance, patrols on the roof, windows barred with enchanted steel. Getting in would be difficult. Getting out alive would be impossible. Perfect. Last chance to reconsider, Celine said beside him. She wore leather armor now, borrowed from one of Khan's contacts, and carried a short sword on her hip. She'd insisted on coming, and Khan had long since learned that arguing with her was pointless. "The plan is simple," Khan said. "I go in loud, draw their attention. While they're focused on me, you slip in through the servants' entrance on the west side. Make your way to the top floor. If I'm not there in an hour, you will be. If I'm not," Khan continued firmly, "you run, promise me." Celine met his eyes. "I promise. Now go make some noise." Khan walked across the street, not bothering to hide his approach. The guard saw him immediately, hands moving to weapons. He drew the sword and crimson fire rippled along its length. "I'm here for the architect," Khan announced, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Tell him Khan, student of Orin Crimson Blade, has come to collect a debt." The guards attacked. Khan moved like water, like fire, like death itself. The sword sang in his hands, each strike trailing flames that consumed flesh and steel alike. The first guard lost his arm at the elbow. The second died as Khan's blade punched through his chest, flash-boiling his blood. The third managed to block once before Khan severed his head with a return stroke. More came. They always did. Khan fought his way through the main entrance, leaving a trail of burning corpses. The sword was eager now, practically screaming for more blood. He could feel its hunger bleeding into his own thoughts, making him more aggressive, more brutal. Part of him knew he should be horrified. Part of him didn't care. He carved through 2 more guards in the entrance hall, then ran for the stairs. Behind him he heard alarm bells and the thunder of boots. Good. The more that came for him, the fewer would notice Celine. The tower's interior was a maze of corridors and defensive positions. Crossbow bolts whizzed past Khan's head. He deflected one with his blade, sent a gout of flame down the hallway that forced the archers to retreat. Up the stairs. Always up. On the 5th floor he encountered something different. Mages in gray robes, their hands already glowing with gathered power. They unleashed bolts of force that hammered into Khan's defense, driving him back. The sword drank in the energy, growing brighter, hungrier. Khan charged, his blade cutting through their magical shields like paper. They died, screaming, their robes igniting, their flesh melting. The sword pulsed with satisfaction, and Khan felt a moment of pure, terrible joy. This is what power feels like. This is what they feared in the Crimson Court. More guards. More blood. Khan lost count of how many he'd killed. The sword never tired, never slowed. It wanted more. Always more. 8th floor. 10th floor. The opposition grew fiercer. Better trained, better equipped. Khan took wounds, minor cuts that would have been crippling in any other fight. But the sword's power kept him moving, kept him fighting. He was dimly aware that he was laughing, that the sound coming from his throat was barely human. And then he was at the 12th floor, standing before a set of massive doors carved with symbols he instinctively recognized, the marks of the Crimson Court. The sword's light grew almost blinding. Khan kicked the doors open. The chamber beyond was circular, its walls lined with maps and documents. In the center stood a figure in dark robes, their face hidden behind a silver mask shaped like a weeping face. "So," a voice said from behind the mask, cultured, educated, neither young nor old. "The student comes for his master's vengeance. How predictable." "Take off the mask," Khan demanded. "Face me." "Why? So you can remember my face as you die?" The figure's laugh was soft. "Or perhaps you want to see if you recognize me? If I'm someone from Orin's past, come back to haunt him. I just want to know why. Why kill him? What threat was a retired teacher to someone like you?" The architect was silent for a moment. Then slowly he reached up and removed the mask. Khan's world shattered. The face beneath was scarred, burned by old fire until barely any original features remained. But the eyes, Khan knew those eyes. He'd seen them every day for 16 years. "No," Khan whispered. "It's not possible." "Hello, Khan," said Orin's voice from a dead man's face. "We need to talk." Khan's blade wavered, the flames guttering like a dying candle. His mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. Orin, his master, his father in all but blood, the man he'd watched die, stood before him, very much alive. "You're dead," Khan said, the words hollow. "I saw Corvin kill you. I saw your bones in Velthara. You saw what I needed you to see." Orin, the architect, moved with the same fluid grace Khan remembered. though his scarred face twisted the familiar mannerisms into something grotesque. The body was a vagrant, same build, wearing my clothes. A simple illusion maintained the appearance long enough. As for the crossbow bolt, he gestured to his chest. Padding, theater. Corvin was in on it, though the fool got himself killed before I could pay him properly. Why? The word came out broken. Why fake your death? Why make me think? Because you needed to be forged, Khan. Tempered. Oren circled slowly, his hands empty but his posture ready. When I found you, you were raw potential wrapped in poverty and resentment. I trained your body, taught you discipline, but you lacked the one thing that makes a true warrior. And what's that? Purpose, conviction, the willingness to wade through blood for what you believe in. Oren's smile was terrible on his ruined face. So I gave you a cause, a villain to hate, a reason to become more than just a skilled swordsman. Khan felt something break inside him. The grief that had driven him for months, the rage that had sustained him through impossible odds, the love that had made every loss meaningful, all of it had been manufactured, a lie, a test. The sword, Khan said slowly. You wanted me to find it. The moment your blood touched that stone, the moment your grief opened you to its call, yes, the blade needed someone worthy, someone desperate enough to accept its hunger. Oren's eyes gleamed. The Crimson Court is gone, Khan, but its weapons remain, its techniques remain, and with someone like you wielding them, with someone molded specifically for this purpose, he spread his hands. We could rebuild, reclaim what was taken from us. You're insane. I'm practical. The High Council that destroyed the court still exists, still pulls strings from the shadows. They fear what we were, what we could be again. Oren took a step closer. Join me, Khan. Help me restore the Crimson Court. We could bring order to this chaos, make the world remember what it means to fear true power. Khan looked at his master, at this stranger wearing a dead man's voice. The sword pulsed in his hand, eager, hungry. It wanted him to say yes, wanted to be used, wanted to burn the world alongside someone who understood its purpose. And for a moment, Khan was tempted. The power was there. The path was clear. He could become something legendary, something feared. Then he thought of Celine, of her bruised smile and her stubborn loyalty, of the way she'd looked at him and seen not a weapon, but a man worth saving. No, Khan said quietly. Oren's expression hardened. Excuse me? I said no. You're not my master. My master was a good man who saved a street rat because he saw potential for something better. You're just a bitter relic clinging to dead glory. Khan raised his sword, the flames burning brighter. And you used his face to manipulate me. For that alone you deserve to die. So be it. Oren's hand moved, and suddenly he held a blade of his own, twin to Khan's, pulsing with the same crimson light. I'd hoped to save you this lesson. But if you insist on learning the hard way... They moved. The clash of their swords shook the tower. Crimson fire met crimson fire, the two blades screaming as they connected. Oren fought with 30 years of experience, with techniques Khan had never seen, with a mastery of the sword's power that made Khan's efforts look like a child's fumbling. Khan's ribs cracked under a blast of fire. He rolled, barely avoided a strike that would have taken his head, countered with a thrust that Oren deflected effortlessly. You're good, Oren admitted, pressing his advantage. Better than I expected, but you're fighting with guilt, with doubt. The sword feeds on certainty, Khan, on absolute conviction. Khan blocked a overhead chop, felt the impact rattle his bones. Then I guess I'm at a disadvantage. Fatally so. Oren's next combination was art, a flowing series of strikes that drove Khan backward, each one perfectly placed to limit his options, to force him into defensive positions. Khan felt blood running from a dozen cuts, felt his strength waning as the sword demanded more and more to keep pace. He was going to lose, going to die. The door burst open and Celine ran in, short sword raised. Khan! No! Khan screamed, but it was too late. Oren's blade left Khan's, redirected in a single fluid motion, and took Celine through the stomach. She gasped, eyes going wide with shock, and crumpled. Time stopped. Khan's world narrowed to a single point. Celine's body on the ground, blood pooling beneath her, her eyes finding his with an expression of apology and love, and something inside Khan shattered completely. The sword felt it, fed on it. The rage that exploded through Khan's soul was pure fuel, raw and terrible and absolute. He screamed, and the blade answered, with fire that turned the air to glass. Oren barely got his guard up in time. The force of Khan's assault drove him back step by step, his defenses crumbling under the onslaught. Khan didn't fight with technique anymore. He fought with fury incarnate. "This is it!" Oren shouted over the roar of flames. "This is what you needed, this is—" Khan's blade took his throat. Oren's eyes widened in surprise, his own sword clattering from nerveless fingers. He tried to speak, blood bubbling from his ruined neck, then collapsed. Khan stood over the body, chest heaving, the sword still screaming for more. But he forced himself to drop it, forced himself to turn away from the corpse of a man who'd never really been his master. He stumbled to Celine's side, gathered her into his arms. The wound was bad, deep, bleeding too fast. "Khan," she whispered, her face pale. Did you win?" Yes, don't talk. Save your strength." His hands moved over the wound, trying to stem the bleeding, but there was so much blood, too much. "Liar." Her smile was fond despite the pain. "I'm a healer, remember? I know what this means." No, you're going to be fine. We'll find someone, a better healer, maybe a mage who—" "Khan." She touched his face, leaving a red handprint. "Listen to me. You did it. You avenged your master. You can rest now." "I don't want to rest. I want you." "I know, but we don't always get what we want." Her breathing was shallow, labored. "Promise me something?" "Anything. Don't let this consume you. Don't let the sword make you into him." Her eyes held his. "Be better. Be the man I know you are." I promise, just please don't." But she was already gone, her eyes staring at nothing, the light fading. Khan held her, as the tower burned around him, as guards pounded on the door, as the sword whispered promises of power and revenge. He held her and screamed his grief to the uncaring sky. 6 months later, Khan stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the sunset sea. The sword hung at his hip, quiet for now, its hunger temporarily sated. He'd spent the months after Black Spire hunting down the remnants of Oren's network, destroying what remained of his operation. The High Council had tried to approach him, offering membership, offering purpose. He'd refused. The Crimson Court was dead and deserved to stay dead. He'd buried Celine in a place she'd once mentioned, a garden monastery in the southern hills, where flowers bloomed year-round and the dead were remembered with joy rather than grief. He visited sometimes when the sword's whispers grew too loud and he needed to remember why he fought. The broker had sent word of new developments, other weapons like his surfacing, other survivors of the Crimson Court crawling from hiding. There would always be another fight, another threat. The sword would make sure of that. But for now, in this moment, Khan allowed himself to simply breathe, to watch the sun set over waters that cared nothing for human ambition or ancient legacies, to remember a woman with amber eyes who'd believed in him even when he couldn't believe in himself. "I kept my promise," he said to the wind. "I'm trying to be better." The sword pulsed at his hip, patient and hungry, waiting for the next battle. And Khan knew, with absolute certainty, that there would always be a next battle. That was the price of power, the price of survival. But unlike Oren, unlike the Crimson Court, that had fallen to its own hubris, Khan would face it as himself. Not as a weapon, not as a tool, as a man who'd loved and lost and chosen to keep fighting anyway. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Khan turned away from the sea and walked into the gathering dark, the sword's light the only thing keeping the shadows at bay. Thank you for watching. Please support us by liking, subscribing, and commenting about your favorite characters below.